Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Potholes Coulee in central Washington. This is a place known locally as Ancient Lakes. Have you been here before? It's a special place. It's a good place to kind of just stretch your legs early in springtime. It's March 16th, early on a Saturday morning. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. The light is good, and we're going to walk towards Dusty Lake and do some thinking. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Ice Age floods. Let's go. Okay, looking east up where I parked, I'll put the location of the small parking lot for the Dusty Lake trailhead in the description below. But for us here, I think we're just going to soak in these amazing basalt lava flows. The Columbia lava sheets, who was that? As Israel Russell was calling them. Was that Israel Russell? Yeah, I think so. And hiking from the east and dropping into Potholes Coulee, there's multiple options. And this is just one. And the parking lot was almost full. I think mostly because people are interested in fishing this time of the year. That's not my Jones. But I think we can enjoy this place nonetheless. It just feels great to be out again. My goodness, what a winter. Not particularly hard with snow and cold temperatures, but just that gloom. Those day after day of clouds and fog, and don't have that this morning for sure. It's time to get out here and enjoy these places, and let me just ramble a bit here. So a place like this waits for you. I'm 5 minutes away from the car. Not particularly challenging hiking. And yet here it is. Public land, quite low key. And you're looking west right now. The Columbia River is down in the hole. So you get the skyline with the ridge is up there in the ridge separating us from the Kittitas Valley. So Ellensburg is right up and over the ridge. And in the foreground, the far tan hills are on the west side of the Columbia River. We can't see the Columbia from here, but the Columbia is down in the hole at the base of that sheer dark cliff. And then coming closer to us from that is the floor of Potholes Coulee. And the lake that you're looking at is Dusty Lake, one of a series of quote-unquote ancient lakes. But the disappointing part of the story is those lakes are not natural. Those are bodies of water from irrigation water nearby that seeped into these low spots. So if you go back before the Grand Coulee Dam was constructed and you look at aerial photographs from the 1930s and earlier, there's no lakes. There were no ancient lakes at that time. But if you can handle that, that doesn't bother you a whole lot. I don't know, to me it kind of ruins it to know that this is kind of like just puddles of water left over from farming. Whatever. We can still enjoy this amazing place. And full disclosure, I'm doing this video in part just to enjoy being out with you, but I'm also doing it as a bit of a scouting video because I think we're going to film a new episode of Nick on the Rocks here in Potholes Coulee. Whether we call it Potholes Coulee or Ancient Lakes, I'm not sure. But I'm communicating with a very talented videographer, Brady Lawrence. Good morning, Brady. So this is the lighting condition with blue sky at 9 o'clock in the morning. and plenty of opportunity to really get a good sense of this. If you've been with us all winter and learning about the Ice Age floods, and maybe you are in Western Washington or Portland or something like that, and you're like, boy, I don't know, can I get to any of those places where the Ice Age floods did their thing? And if I can, do I have to stay in my car and like drive up the guts of Grand Coulee or something like that? This is you talking, and you're like, I don't think I can hike very far. Well, I'm 10 minutes from my car right now. The only drop I did was I parked up there on top, and it was whatever, 100 feet down through a couple little notches, but there's guardrails literally. Again, this is the Dusty Lake Trail. Look in the description below, you'll see a little Google Maps pin where you can park. It's free. And, you know, most of this is pretty low key. I mean, you know, I got my hands in my pockets. Not a challenging endeavor. And yet, you can get a real clear feel for the scale. Now, this is one of two coulees. So this Potholes Coulee area is if you take the time to look on Google Maps, you'll see that there's two coulees. And a coulee is just a big Ice Age floods carved canyon. There's no river in the floor of this thing. And that ridge over there is tall, but it's narrow. So there's this coulee, and then if you get up and over that basalt rib out in the middle, there's an equally big coulee on the other side. Collectively, they're known as Potholes Coulee. Kind of dumb name, I think. I would call it twin coulees or something a little bit more descriptive for the fact that these things are formed in tandem, but not up to me. I missed that meeting. Fresh air. White pasty skin. I guess I got off the trail here. Did I? I must have. Too busy talking to you guys. Let me find the trail. Oh no, it's here. It's just a little, so what I've done so far is super straightforward, and now it's a bit more of a scramble. This might be a deal breaker for some of you, but I'm just trying to think about people who have been enjoying learning about these places, want to do a short hike that's not terribly intimidating. And I would put this one right up there. But yeah, this stretch here is probably not for everybody. Breaking a sweat already. Love it. You gotta love it. Maybe a person's like, oh, I don't know, that looks like snake country to me. I am deathly afraid of snakes. Is that you talking right now? Well, my good buddy Adrienne Slade, I don't know if you've seen a couple of videos I've done with her about rattlesnakes. It's too early for rattlesnakes. If you want to see this country and you're yet very afraid of snakes, this is rattlesnake habitat for sure, but safe to say that you have no concerns about snakes in mid-March. They are hibernating, or whatever the right term is. They're in their dens. So come on out. And it doesn't seem to appease people's fears, but I've lost track of how many people bring up rattlesnakes when they talk to me about hiking in this country in July and August and September. And I'm like, just never really had a problem. It's just not a problem. You hear a rattle, you stop, you back up a little bit, give them space. They're not interested in dealing with you. That's the end of the story. And that snake video I did with Adrian last spring, I had total trust in her. Like almost irrational amounts of trust. Because we were walking around on a den with hundreds of snakes. And yet I was with her and I just knew I was in good hands. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to go much, well, I don't know. So now I've got a, looks like I need to, let's try over here. A common experience out here is dealing with, even if there is a bit of a trail, there's a few spots where kind of getting down on all fours, or at least 3, is needed. And that's where a few longer legs help out. But I'm not exactly young anymore, so I have to be a little bit extra careful about locomoting out here. Perhaps you can relate. So I'm willing to bet, I don't even know about fishing season. Is it fishing season right now? It sure seems like it is. I'm willing to bet we're going to see a few folks fishing on the shore here. Maybe I'll just... But it's dead calm out here, no vehicles. And, I mean, Interstate 90 is 10 miles away. So this is a nice spot to experience solitude. And you're like, yeah, how about you just shut up and let me enjoy this place? Okay. Can do. Yeah, it looks like there's a faint trail through the talus there, but I don't think I'm going to get much better view. I'm not sure I need to go over there necessarily, although maybe I want to go up on that rib. Yeah, it's nicely lit from the east here. Bald eagle. Can't promise there's going to be a bald eagle when you come. Test my videography skills here. Oh boy. So, do you have this book in your library? On the Trail of the Ice Age Floods by Bruce Bjornstad. To me, this is still the go-to for easy access places to hike and drive to appreciate the Ice Age floods. So let me skip to a page that I used this morning, because it's been a few years since I've been in this spot. Come on, Bruce. This book is almost 20 years old. Wow, time flies. All right. So here's a map. And you can see Dusty Lake Trail leading to Dusty Lake. That's where we are. So I parked at that capital letter T, which is the trailhead, and it took me 20 minutes with a couple of minor scrambles to get to this view. Dusty Lake sitting in Potholes Coulee. But you can see that there's, can you? You can maybe see that there's a basalt rib, and Bruce has actually planted, at least 20 years ago, put a geocache on a selected spot on that basalt rib. And so hopefully you can see that there's Potholes Coulee is really two separate coulees, east-west, and Ancient Lake, which is not the southern coulee, but the one across the way. So again, that's the basalt rib right there. If you hop over basalt rib, get your geocache, leave your little treasure, pick up a little treasure from the geocache, thanks Bruce, then you can hop down to a bigger series of lakes, ancient lakes. Let's read a little bit, if possible, with the lighting conditions just right, to read out of Bruce's book. Dusty Lake Trail drops quickly into the heart of the south alcove of Potholes Coulee at Dusty Lake, provides the shortest access into the coulee. Because of several steep sections, the trail is recommended for hikers only. You can get up to a 2-mile round trip if you like. Driving directions is before Google Maps and everything. Upper Cataract. Yeah, there's a handrail. I was surprised by that. And Bruce calls it right. Irrigation water. Yeah, there are some impressive flood deposits. So before we leave this spot, let me just kind of narrate for you in case you're not quite sure of the basics of the Ice Age floods that are here. So before the Ice Age, 2.6 million years ago, none of this opening was here. And again, you know there's a twin one on the other side of that rib. Okay, fine. So these basalt layers were intact. There was no disconnect between that side and that side. There wasn't even a river valley here. In fact, there was a beautiful ridge, a north-south ridge coming right through here. I mean, the Gorge Amphitheater, if you've been to a music show at the Gorge, is, like 3 miles that way to the south. Again, you're looking west. So 2.5 million years ago, there was no valley here at all. This was, in fact, a beautiful ridge. I don't know how beautiful it was, but it was an intact ridge. God, there's that bald eagle again. And the idea is, this is not a pre-glacial valley that was carved out by floodwater. That is the story with Moses Coulee or the Lower Grand Coulee. But here instead, this is a ridge that was totally blown out by Ice Age floodwater. So why would the floodwater come through here? Why would it just remove this whole ridge in such a dramatic case? Well, it's hard to do that verbally, but I'll try. Behind us is a broad open basin called the Quincy Basin. Think of it like a kiddie pool out in your front lawn. And you got the garden hose starting to fill the kiddie pool. So the garden hose was the Grand Coulee. And there was major Ice Age floodwater coming over Dry Falls, down through Lower Grand Coulee, getting to Soap Lake, getting to what's known as the Ephrata Fan, dropping a bunch of rocks, but that garden hose just fills the kiddie pool, fills the Quincy Basin. That's behind us. But we quickly fill the kiddie pool to such an extreme that there's too much water for the kiddie pool, and there's a few places around the rim of the plastic edge of the kiddie pool that are going to start to give way. This is one of those spots where the water started leaking over the top. And it's common for people to talk about, visualize a waterfall where the water from Quincy Basin behind you is cascading down into the Columbia River down in the hole there. Well, that's fine, but as Vic Baker said recently in a live stream, no, it was a recorded Zoom interview with Sky Cooley, as Vic Baker said, this is Vic talking, I've done the hydraulics on this. You couldn't, if you were in a helicopter looking at this Ice Age flooding, leaking over and destroying this ridge, you wouldn't even see the waterfall because there was a couple 100 feet of water up in the sky that was surging from the Quincy Basin, getting excited now, water leaking from the Quincy Basin bathtub behind you and dropping into the Columbia Gorge was so deep that you couldn't have seen a waterfall. So, I mean, yeah, are we looking at a plunge pool? Is this a place where there was an Ice Age waterfall? Yeah, that's the most convenient way to describe it, because we can relate to what a waterfall is. We've seen waterfalls. But as Vic and others have pointed out, there was so much water leaking over that you're destroying the edge of the kiddie pool. You're destroying the ridge. And yet, if you're looking down on when that floodwater was leaking from the Quincy Basin to the Columbia River Valley floor, you would have seen white water, but you wouldn't have seen the big drop. It was all under the water. It's like, think of the thunder. Think of the sounds of that. And then, yeah, once you get that waterfall starting to, you know what I mean by waterfall, quote unquote, once you get that waterfall to start chewing away at this basalt material, then you retreat. Then you take the rim of that waterfall, quote unquote, and it starts to migrate east. And as you migrate the waterfall east, chew more, chew more, chew more, chew more, it all gets sent down to Columbia. You're left with this Potholes Coulee scene. This deepest part, which was totally without lake water until the 20th century, this deepest part marks where the thundering, quote-unquote, waterfall was doing its thing. And so, yes, this is the old lip of the waterfall, but you're hearing me, I think, that it was more than just a simple waterfall visual. Now, what I'm interested in is when exactly did that happen? If you've been with me all winter, you know that I'm starting to have doubts about whether that major Ice Age flooding, the biggest of the stories, was younger than 30,000 years ago. Yeah, even in a place like this, I'm wondering if the older, bigger story is far older than 30,000 years ago. Class dismissed. About 9:45 a.m. That's one lava flow, bottom half, beautiful colonnade, 16 million years ago, red hot liquid. The columns formed at the base first and then crackled their way up towards the interior of the flow. And then those columns stop and we get into this weird, swirly, chaotically fractured entablature, which remains a mystery. Nobody knows how to interpret that interior, chaotic fracture scene. The Columbia lava sheets. Israel Russell. Canyon wren. Hope you can hear that. My favorite sound out here. Lava and water. Thank you, everybody. I love you. And goodbye from Potholes Coulee in Central Washington. But wait, there's more. I can't stop, obviously. This is a spot, and the light is precisely wrong now. You're looking southeast, back towards Dusty. So at the beginning of the video, I was on the other side looking this way. But I'm up here in this cute little saddle in that basalt rib that's sitting precisely in the middle of Potholes Coulee. And I just visited with some folks who watch a bunch of the videos, and that was fun. And besides them, even though it's a very busy morning at the trailhead, you can easily get pretty lonesome all by yourself. Solitude and everything else. So if I can get Brady out here sometime this spring, maybe this is a spot where we can get a sense of the twin, right? So you're looking north, the north part of Potholes Coulee. The blade is behind me, this thin basaltic rib. But as we work our way back to the south, there's Dusty looking into the sun. Okay, I think I need to flip you around. I think I want to share this with you. So maybe I can just finish this video finally with you to just tell you a quick story. At the end of the last segment, at the other spot, I turned the camera off, put it in my pocket, threw everything in my pack, walked back to the car. And as I was approaching the car, there were quite a few people at the lot. 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Everybody's got spring fever. They're all out here. And somebody asked me if there was a spot to park up ahead. And I said, oh yeah, just swing around. And he's like, hey, Nick Zentner. And I said, yes, sir. So we talked for about 5 minutes. He'd been watching all the videos. And it's a common thing. There's a reason I'm telling you this story. It's a common thing that people recognize my voice. They don't really recognize me, but that voice, the heads just turn like, I know that voice. So as I'm talking to this one guy, then the person just about ready to start hiking also says, hey, it's my turn to chat with you for a while. And then a father of 3 teenage daughters. And then a cowboy. And then a hippie gal. And they're all respectful. Each of those encounters are about 5 minutes. I enjoy it. Handshake, maybe even pose for a photo or two with the girls or something like that. That's fine. But you know what my favorite part is? I'm on my way. I throw my pack in the car, turn the car on, start heading out back onto the gravel road. I just look in my rearview mirror. And they're all talking to each other. And I don't think there'd be any other reason that they would talk to each other. But they have a connection. They have something in common. So one of the guys said, I just was down at Emerald Road and I was collecting all these river stones that you made that video about a couple of years ago. So he's on his hands and knees with his bucket full of Columbia River quartzites, blonde quartzites, golden quartzites, and he was giving them to the teenage girls and the Mexican-American family. And I mean, that's my favorite part of this whole thing. Thank you. Goodbye.